I thought I'd start off by giving you some examples of what you get told publicly and what actually happens privately, and I'll show you a few of those. But one of the things I wanted to show you was that something that happened in Sydney at the start of this year, not to do with Shane, but this one here. On the front page of the Sydney Sun Herald was this headline: how much your property will rise in value this year. It didn't say it with any doubt. It said it as a matter of certainty, how much your property will rise in value this year. The same weekend was this headline in the same Fairfax paper: prices fall as the frenzy fades. So what is the situation? How do we know, for example, when a real estate market is too high? What keeps it going? And I can assure you that what's kept the current Sydney real estate market going has been something akin to the strawberry box principle of investing. And I'll speak about that when I talk with you about investing after the break. But just in case I forget, I'll continue down that line now, because what I do, even though I do this talk many times, I do it differently every time I do it. Not because I don't want it to be boring, not necessarily for you, but for me as the speaker. So the strawberry box, and I tend to get a little Ronnie Corbettish sometimes, so if I forget where I am, I might get you to remind me. But the strawberry box principle works like this. It's the box of strawberries that keeps getting sold over and over again for higher and higher prices, until one day somebody opens the strawberry box and says, these strawberries are all rotten. And the person who's selling the strawberries says, oh no, they're not for eating, they're for selling. And that is currently what you have in today's real estate market. Just very, very quickly, how can prices keep going up by 25, 30, 40% when wages are going up at 5 and 10%? It's kind of common sense that we are running out of money to pay for it. But I'll get into that, and I'll show you some of those things as well. But when you're out there, how do you pick who's a good agent and who's not a good agent? The people who run the real estate industry, they'll all tell you that their agents are perfect. And I teach agents, and as I said to you, I can assure you that some of those are not perfect. And when I close this evening, I'll show you how I believe redress should apply in the industry. But there are people at the heads of franchise networks, there are people at the heads of real estate institutes. In fact, here is an advertisement that says, is your agent a member of the Real Estate Institute? Now, I have a very interesting question, and because my critics will often say, look, he doesn't really have any qualifications, I'll go, yes, well, that's why I have to kind of talk really simply. The same as when I go to a doctor. I'll ask, he mightn't be qualified as a doctor, but if I've got a pain, I'll say, look, I'm qualified to know that this is hurting. So let me show you a couple of things. You might recall a couple of years ago, I think it was about 3 years ago actually, there was a scandal that broke out in the eastern states of Australia about real estate agents who were following up death notices in the newspapers. And in case you don't recall it, I've got the headline here that said, when death comes knocking, so does the real estate agent. Well, what is the real estate industry's response to this sort of thing? Well, it's general. It kind of all works the same. In New South Wales, the president of the Real Estate Institute said the agent couldn't be punished because he wasn't a member of the institute. I see. Another CEO said, I am appalled by this alleged conduct. And they like to use the word alleged as if the widows and widowers were lying about it. They were just making it up. I believe it's isolated. That's another word that gets used a lot by the spin doctors in real estate. If we do find it's happening, we can fine members, expel them, or require them to undertake a training course. Now that's interesting, because a couple of days after that comment was made, I sent somebody into the Real Estate Institute to purchase this manual, which is published by the Real Estate Institute of Australia. And inside the manual, it's got 69, I think it is, ways to follow up death notices, to follow up, Method 44 is follow up death notices. There it is. Method 59 for finding new business is visit nursing homes and retirement villages. I actually am pleased to say that that manual that I have in my hand here, I believe has now been withdrawn. So even though they mightn't pay me any sort of like public attention, or I know in New South Wales their general line is no comment. When I'm in town, they batten down the hatches and just put out the hurricane shutters and that's it. But I believe that has been withdrawn. I've actually got in my hands here, and a slide was made of it, but I considered it too distressing. I've got a letter here written by a real estate agent with the death notice pinned to the top left-hand corner, written to the widow of somebody who's just lost their husband. And it says, dear Mrs. So-on, it says, as per the details from the newspaper, we notice that you are the executor of this estate. But then it goes on and says, we hope this letter has not arrived at a sensitive time. But if you are in need of a comprehensive appraisal of the deceased's property, and then it goes on, if you're offended by this letter, ignore it. Now, I'm not saying everybody does this, and I know lots of real estate people would be appalled, but as I'll show you later on, what actually happens when that gets done? I know it's isolated or it's alleged. I had a fellow who left our company recently because he said that the biggest obstacle to profit in the Jenman group was Neil Jenman. So he left. He's now gone to work with a rival training company, and this is some of the stuff that they issue. 50 ideas to rev up your sales. Market yourself, not your properties. Nobody buys a house from a classified ad, or very few people do. Probate, deaths and divorces. They're a great source of leads. When dealing with sellers, use market feedback to bolster your case. And in a hot market, don't be afraid to underprice. Now, in fairness to real estate agents, it's a very, very competitive industry. Real estate agents, well, particularly when the boom's on, wherever you look, you'll find a real estate agent. And real estate agents, the way they get paid is they get paid by the sellers. And you home buyers this evening are going to understand why it is that when you've got $400,000 or $500,000 to spend, you get treated far, far worse than if you're spending $4 or $5 in a milk bar. You'll understand, because what the agents want more than anything else are home sellers, because it's home sellers that pay their commission. And when they get a home seller and get the home seller signed up, it's called a listing. Now, there are 3 topics that are not discussed, well, not taught really, in the real estate industry. Those 3 topics are negotiation, ethics. They say they teach ethics, but I can assure you they do not teach ethics. I was on ABC Late Night Radio with Tony Delroy about 12 months ago, and the man who was on with me was the CEO of one of the institutes, and he was saying that they teach ethics. And I thought, be kind to him. And I thought, if he keeps going down this path too much more, I'm going to do it to him. So I did. I asked him what the meaning of the word ethics was, and he couldn't answer me. But I thought you said you teach ethics. Ethics is a system of moral principles by which human actions are judged right or wrong, good or bad. That's what ethics is. That's the dictionary definition. And the first principle of ethics comes from the Latin, which is primum non nocere, which means first do no harm, don't hurt anybody. It doesn't say that because you're acting for the seller, it's okay to have a dummy bidder. That's not ethical. But nevertheless, ethics is something that is not taught, nor is marketing. Marketing to real estate agents is just putting out advertisements. Advertisements is not marketing. Real estate agents, as you know, in their search for listings, will be putting flyers in your letterboxes and calling you up and doing all sorts of things. And I thought I'd give you some examples. And this first one comes from the largest real estate organisation in the world, a company called Century 21. And this is a flyer that they put out called "Come in and talk to the big boys of real estate," because they're the biggest in the world, you see. And they actually put an image on, this shows you an example of what they know about marketing. They put an image on the front to endear themselves to you, the home sellers. There they go. Want to sell your property. They're all trying to be different. Everybody's trying very hard to be different. For instance, who said all real estate agents are the same? Well, this fellow, of course, he's totally different. And there's another one here, Leo. And his advantage, if you call him, he's house trained. Which means that at least you know your carpets are going to be safe. I saw this one in Melbourne last week and I thought it was quite cute, and I quite liked this fellow. I thought he looked good. For big results, deal with the biggest in the business. Now, I like the one on the left, but I'm not sure about what he's got in his hand on the other picture, but never mind. In Melbourne as well, in some of the high market areas, a little more sophisticated, and here's a good one. It says, outstanding in his field. Is that a donkey? No, I mean on the left, on the right. Sorry, I'm looking from a different position here. And I was in Port Macquarie, and I thought I would have to get these people in if I was selling my home. I really would. The only thing missing from this next one is the theme from Bonanza. Have a look at this, will you? This is pretty good. I like this. Here we go. There they go. You can just hear it, can't you? Yep.